Welcome to the Trump Report Card, where we evaluate the Trump administration's military decisions and actions, grading them through an anti-war lens. In this episode, we present stories about the US war on the Houthis in Yemen. The first story is from Reuters on January 23. It reads, Trump designates Yemen's Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. The Houthis' activities threaten the security of American civilians and personnel in the Middle East, the safety of our closest regional partners, and the stability of global maritime trade, the White House said. The Houthis have attacked selected ships in the Red Sea since November 2023, saying they are acting in solidarity with Palestinians over Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. We gave Trump's decision a grade of F+. The next story comes from Al Jazeera on March 15. Houthis say children among 32 killed after US fighter jets bomb Yemen. US attacks on the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, as well as areas in Sada and Al-Baida, killed 32 people and wounded 101, according to the Ministry of Health. Most of the casualties were children and women. The attacks come after Trump warned that hell will rain down if Houthis attacked ships in the Red Sea. The Houthis threatened to resume raids on Israeli-linked ships in the Red Sea over Israel's blockade on Gaza. The US attacks on Yemen received a grade of F. The following video clip is from the Wall Street Journal on March 17. Officials warn Houthis, attacks on the US will not be tolerated.
Our message to Iran is you better take this president seriously, and I think the Houthis learned that the hard way this past weekend. As I said in my opening remarks, there's a new sheriff in town, and this president is not just going to sit on his hands and allow terrorists to launch attacks on commercial vessels and U.S. naval ships. Those actions will not be tolerated.
Firing at U.S. military personnel in the region and shooting at our ships and shooting at our drones and putting American lives at risk is not a good way to end this conflict. The Houthis could stop this tomorrow if they said, we're going to stop shooting at your people. But they've clearly chosen not to do that. And so this campaign will be relentless to degrade their capability and to open up shipping lanes in the region and to defend our homeland.
If the Houthis would be sending missiles or attacking both commercial and military ships, what the previous administration did is they would do one strike as a tit-for-tat dynamic. What's happening now is a complete shift when it comes to the nature of why it's going on, which is to stop the assault on the maritime traffic in that area. And up to this point, there's about 174 attacks on American naval ships, which is an extraordinary number of attacks. And this isn't a situation that should be managed. It has to stop.
The Trump administration's warnings were given an F+. On March 24, antiwar.com reported, US launches multiple airstrikes on Yemen's northern Sada province. The US launched 8 airstrikes on the outskirts of the northern Yemeni city of Sada and hit other sites in the province. The grade for this story is an F. This story is from the HuffPost on March 26. Signal chat caught Trump officials cheering destruction of entire building to kill one man. The remarks were in response to the US attack in which Houthi leaders claimed that 53 people, including 5 children, were killed in airstrikes, which included missiles from Navy fighter planes, sea-launched Tomahawk cruise missiles and armed drones. This news was graded a D-. The next day, the Associated Press ran this news video. US airstrikes targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels more intense than last, AP review finds.
A new campaign of airstrikes targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels by the Trump administration is more aggressive and taking more chances than those under the previous Biden administration. That's according to a new survey by the Associated Press studying these strikes that have been ongoing since March 15th and have gained new prominence over the leak of information on the messaging app Signal between members of the Trump administration. Now, these strikes, according to Trump and other officials, are aimed at stopping the Houthis from launching attacks on the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and other Mideast waterways that have affected global shipping. However, the Houthis had largely stopped these attacks prior to the Trump administration launching this campaign. The Houthis had, however, threatened to again start attacking Israeli ships. So far, there have been 57 people killed in these strikes. That's according to the Houthis. But The Americans still maintain that there have been no civilian casualties in this strike. That directly contradicts what we've heard from Air Wars, which is a United Kingdom-based group that studies American strikes in Yemen and other places in the Middle East. They say there have been at least 5 incidents in which civilians have either been hurt or killed in this campaign.
This was graded an F. 4 days later, the Associated Press reported that U.S. airstrikes pound Yemen overnight, killing at least 3, Houthi rebels say. This was given an F. 4 days after that, the Hindu reported that suspected U.S. airstrikes in Yemen kill at least 6 people, Houthi rebels say. This story was also given a grade of F. This is from Al Jazeera on April 14th. U.S. attacks on Yemen killed 123 people since mid-March. Yemen's Ministry of Health said that U.S. attacks have also injured 247 others, stressing that the victims include many women and children. This news got an F. On April 19th, France 24 reported, more than 70 killed in deadliest U.S. attack on Yemen, Houthis say.
American bombers take off over the Red Sea with missiles on full display. In videos posted on X by the U.S. Central Command Friday. The post follows a U.S. airstrike which resulted in a fiery explosion of the Ras Isa fuel port, though it is unclear when the videos were filmed. The American Defense Force included the hashtag Houthis are terrorists in their post. According to Houthi sources, dozens were killed in the attack on the Ras Isa port, making it the most deadly American strike on Yemen since Donald Trump's return to the White House. Protests have broken out across Yemen in response to the near-daily bombing that has damaged civilian infrastructure and caused widespread casualties.
The United States initially claimed its strikes were not aimed at civilians or the people in Yemen, but only at the Houthi group and the military targets. Then the United States blatantly attacked a civilian port, which exposed its true intention.
The American attacks were given a grade of F. The next 2 stories are from the New York Times. On April 21st, it reported, U.S. airstrike hits Yemeni capital, killing 12, local health officials say. An American airstrike hit a densely populated area of the Yemeni capital on Sunday, killing 12 people and injuring 30, according to the health ministry of the Houthi-led government. 2 witnesses who live in the capital, Sana'a, said that the attack struck a neighborhood near the Old City, a densely populated UNESCO World Heritage Site that is filled with ancient towers. The attacks were given a grade of F. 3 days later, The Times reported, US says blast in Yemen was caused by Houthi missile, not US strike. A deadly blast on Sunday near a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Yemen's capital was caused by a Houthi missile, not a US airstrike, a spokesman for US Central Command said. The Pentagon's assessment that the damage was caused by a Houthi air defense missile was based in part on a review of local reporting, including videos documenting Arabic writing on the missile's fragments at the market. The American claim was given a grade of D-. On the same day, antiwar.com reported, US has launched 750 airstrikes on Yemen since March 15. A US official has told ABC News that the US has launched about 750 airstrikes on Yemen since March 15, a relentless bombing campaign that has failed to deter the Houthis and has taken a heavy toll on civilians. The US restarted their attacks in Yemen after the Houthis renewed their blockade on Israeli and US shipping in the Red Sea. The Houthis' actions were in response to Israel's violation of the Gaza ceasefire when they reimposed their blockade on humanitarian aid and all other goods entering Gaza. News of the month-long bombings received a grade of F. And the final story comes from NBC News on April 28th. It reads, dozens dead after US airstrike on Yemeni prison. At least 68 people were killed after a US airstrike on a Yemeni prison that was housing African migrants, according to Houthi-run media.
خطط واحد يمشي المستشفى ما يقعد ودهم ما هو لا هنجر ما هو صبر
The airstrikes were given a grade of F. So, the average grade of the 14 stories in this show was an F. We hope this episode of the Trump Report Card has offered you valuable information. For more about the US war in Yemen, which started in 2009 under the Obama administration, visit the St. Pete for Peace website through the link in the description below. From there, you can access a chronological listing of news stories from 2009 through 2015. Previous Trump Report Card shows include Episode 1, where we grade the Trump administration's involvement in the war in Ukraine, and Episode 2, where we grade the Trump administration's actions in Israel's war in Gaza and the West Bank. Future shows include Episode 4, which will cover news about US involvement with Iran, Somalia, the USAID, Venezuela, Syria, and more. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time.